Good afternoon and welcome to this session of the Rimini meeting. The title of this session is The Mediterranean Sea, a Peace Frontier. We have long talked about peace. There are many calls for peace, but this afternoon, we have the chance to talk about a pathway that aims at really achieving peace. It is a path towards sharing, and it focuses on the possibility of actually achieving peace in a realistic way. I am particularly grateful of the fact that we have His Eminence Cardinal Gualtiero Bassetti, the President of the Italian Episcopal Conference. Thank you very much for being with us. I would also like to welcome Mr. Dario Nardella, who is the Mayor of Florence. Thanks also to you for being with us. On the written program, you still see two names, Itany, the Mayor of Beirut, and the Mayor of Tunis, Souad Abderrahim. Both have communicated in the last few days that unfortunately they couldn't make it for this session. And this also testifies to the fact that it is particularly important to actually directly address the difficulties that we still have in the Mediterranean Sea. This session serves as a bridge between two important sessions, one that took place in Bari in February last year, following the invitation of Bishop Bassetti, attended by 58 bishops from 28 countries facing the Mediterranean. The second meeting will take place between February and March next year in Florence, and it will see the participation not only of the bishops of the Mediterranean as well as of the mayors of the Mediterranean. And that is also the reason why we have Mayor Nardella with us. Florence is the town of Giorgio Lapira, who is currently, who is about to, and we will also consider for Giorgio Lapira, for him, the beatification case is currently being discussed. So, His Eminence, the Bari meeting was a unique meeting. The bishops of the Mediterranean have never met before. Their aim was to share problems and to find new roads of collaboration and create new experiences. It is as if the entire peace process has stopped. It is as if many obstacles are here. But with this meeting, you sort of marked a new beginning. Can you tell us what the objectives of the Bari meeting were and what your expectations for Florence are? First of all, I would like to greet you on behalf of the Italian bishops, whom I represent. So I would like you to feel this caress by the Italian Church. The initiative has been so valid, not only from a spiritual point of view, but also from a cultural one. And this initiative is the Rimini meeting. And I've always tried in one way or the other to attend the Rimini meeting. You did well in stressing that the Bari meeting was a unique occasion. As a matter of fact, we can say that ever since the Christian ancient times that the Mediterranean, the focus on the Mediterranean are not addressed in the bishops' actions, at least in the actions of the bishops altogether. And as a matter of fact, with the interruption of the Roman Empire's political unity, Christian churches have witnessed that the Mediterranean has been characterized by dynamics that have brought many peoples and many countries apart. And the most striking example was the fracture between the bishops' unity between the West and the East. However, the Mediterranean has also continued to be a fantastic scientific, religious, and cultural laboratory thanks to the exchanges between cultures and the intercultural dynamics. So if we analyze the reality of the Mediterranean Sea, we are really amazed. That is a small basin. The Mediterranean is a small basin touching upon 3 continents. Mr. Lapira said that it stretches up until the Ural Mountains. And in this small basin, forms of civilizations which are the most well-known for us have developed. Just imagine that, for example, in the world, about 30 civilizations have become known, but more than 20 have developed in the Mediterranean basin. And this is something that is obvious and clear. And it is also clear that the Mediterranean is the land of Abraham. Go towards the land I will tell you. And he told him the Mediterranean. This is, Mr. Lapira said that Abraham brings in himself already the elements of the 3 monotheistic religions that are professed by the inhabitants living around the Mediterranean Sea. And this is particularly important. This means that all those who believe in these 3 religions believe in God's transcendence. They believe that God is the creator, that God is merciful. And this is something which is really particularly important. Giorgio Lapira used to say that it is necessary to start again from there, because we can not only have peace in the Mediterranean, but also a peace that can be extended to the whole world. So today we have reached a stage of mankind and man's history in which we can no longer afford actions that separate us. We are faced with enormous challenges like justice, war, global warming, health, and all of these challenges force us to face these problems united and not separated. There is a word which is quite equivocal. It is the word rival. If you look it up in the dictionary, the rival has become the enemy, so the person who is against you. However, the rival is the inhabitant of the land on the other shore. Basically, it's the enemy. It is our neighbor. So in the Mediterranean, we have to come back to this moment. We have to be true rivals, because these problems are problems that are shared by the entire mankind. The problems I was hinting at before can be faced only together. Thank you very much. We will then go back to you later. Dario Nardella, you are the heir of the great cultural heritage, cultural legacy of Mr. Lapira. So uniting civilization to unite nations. Is it possible? And what's your idea? The idea that has led you to to bring together mayors in Florence. That is also going to be something unique. Well, thank you very much. I would like to greet you on behalf of my city and of my community. I would like to thank the people of the Rimini meeting for organizing this edition of the meeting in presence. The courage to say I is the title of this edition. I think that the very first deed of courage was to organize this edition and to do it passionately. Well, being an heir of La Pira's legacy is really frightening for me. I think that what this mayor taught us, this mayor who was so little with a slightly southerner accent, he came from Sicily, then moved to Florence, and His Eminence, Mr. Bassetti, Bishop Bassetti, met him personally. So every day, I am really sorry about the fact that I didn't have the chance to communicate, to talk with him. So this legacy of La Pira is something that concerns not only Florence and Italy, but the whole world. La Pira, Giorgio La Pira knew how to talk about the world and to talk to the world. He was kind of obsessed, and this is something that can be found in his writings. Actually, he was obsessed by the fact that he wanted to live his dimension as the mayor of a city who was supposed to be fully immersed in the world, in international issues. Actually, he would say that the mayor of Florence has to change the light bulbs of the public lighting and at the same time promoting peace in the world, as if the two were kind of opposed. But actually, this combination, which is so simple, clearly shows the way of thinking of Giorgio La Pira, and I really hope that the process of beatification of Giorgio La Pira is positively finalized. Talking about cities and nations, Giorgio La Pira also said that cities are there to stay while rains finish. And as a matter of fact, if we think of the Mediterranean that His Eminence Bishop Bassetti was talking about before, well, the Mediterranean is made up of the extraordinary long history of the cities on the Mediterranean. These are cities which in the past have been for example, republics which were besieged, which, however, have always been rebuilt. The borders of the reigns and the nations where they are have changed over time, but the cities have remained there. And it is exactly cities that Giorgio La Pira strongly believes in. He kind of reversed the idea that it is nation states, sovereign states, who can change the destinies of cities. Actually, La Pira strongly believed in the role of cities. He believed that cities have a world vocation. He could see this vocation, for example, in Florence, in Constantinople, in Athens, Jerusalem, and he would call Florence as the second Jerusalem. So he had lots of engagements as a mayor. Among these engagements, he decided to promote two types of meetings, and this more or less around the middle of the last century. In 1955, he invited the mayors of the most important capitals of the world to Florence. You might think that this is an easy task to do, but this was not at all the case. So we have witnessed this today. We have seen that, for example, my colleagues from Tunis and Beirut could not move. But just imagine what it could mean also from the point of view of organization. I mean, probably only the Rimini meeting could have made it in 1955 to move the mayors of the world. But he invited the mayors of the most distant cities, not only cities in Europe. And he succeeded in this small miracle. He succeeded in bringing the mayor of Washington to Florence, as well as the mayor of Moscow. And this in 1955, that is to say, in the most difficult moment of the Cold War between Russia and the United States. And Elia della Costa, the extraordinary Cardinal Elia della Costa, hugged the mayor of Moscow. Actually, there was the secretary of the Soviet of Moscow, so someone who was not the mayor, but probably the most important political authority of Moscow. In other words, states and the state reason did not succeed in doing this. It was unimaginable in 1955 that the president of the United States could hug the president of the Soviet Union, but actually mayors did it, and Lapira had understood this. So he brought together all these mayors, coming also from the Far East, for example, from Japan, to share a strong peace message with them. They signed a charter, and that was needed and useful also to kind of soften and mitigate relations between states. Some years later, in 1958, after that experience, Giorgio Lapira invented yet another meeting and dedicated this new meeting to the Mediterranean. So to the Tiberiade, the Lake of Tiberiade, as Lapira liked to call it. And as a matter of fact, he was inspired by a number of colleagues. He was inspired by a number of talks he had with his colleagues in the Mediterranean. Mohammed V visited Florence in those years. Then Lapira went, after this visit, went back to Morocco. And during that visit, he entertained major meetings. Reina said, for example, he would write to the Pope, he would write to all the leaders in the world, and he would talk about peace and dialogue. So he was not frightened by the role of his interlocutor. So he was a very simple and humble character, but there was also his strength. And as a matter of fact, after this talk with the King of Morocco, he started thinking that it was needed, something was needed to return this sort of strength to the Mediterranean. In 1967, actually, he went to Hebron, to the tomb of Abraham. And during this experience, he decided to start organizing a number of dialogues on the Mediterranean. So in 1958, and then later on in 1960 and 1961, Giorgio Lapira invited people from the cultural world, from the political world, and religious personalities to talk about the Mediterranean and how the Mediterranean could become a place of civilization and peace again. So I wonder, by way of conclusion, what has happened in the Mediterranean since 1958? What's the Mediterranean today? Unfortunately, the message by Giorgio Lapira and the message by the mayors has remained unheard. If you think about what we are experiencing these moments in the Mediterranean, you are witnessing dramatic events. This is something unbearable. So, for example, the war in Palestine just a few months ago, with a very unstable peace, then political tensions in Tunisia. Although we all believed that the war in the Maghreb area could have avoided this. Then the exodus of the Syrians and the civil war that is leading to very difficult challenges from the point of view of migration flows with Turkey. being crossed by these migration flows and major political tensions. Then Greece has announced that it wants to erect a barrier at the border with Turkey, and so on and so forth. Then, for example, the problem of the respect for civil rights in many North African countries. Then tensions in Lebanon just a few weeks ago, and the many dead people in the Mediterranean. Bernard, you used the phrase Mare Nostrum. La Pira used to say, this is our sea. Its pains and its hopes are ours. They are our own. But today it seems that the Mediterranean does not belong to anyone. It seems as if the Mediterranean is something distant from us. When the President of the European Commission inaugurated the Congress of the State of the Union in Florence, she quoted Father Milani, and she said, I care. So this thought of Father Milani from Florence is no longer heard, because the I that we are talking about at the Rimini meeting is not inclusive, but it is rather exclusive. The inclusive I conveys a message of love, while the exclusive I means selfishness. It sort of excludes everybody else, and this is exactly what is taking place in the Mediterranean Sea. So that is why I took the courage on one last October. I met His Eminence Bishop Bassetti, and proposed to actually kind of rebuild the thought of Giorgio La Pira, that had brought together religious people and mayors in the Mediterranean. And I suggested that we organize a very ambitious and difficult meeting in Florence that can bring together mayors coming from cities, mayors of 3 different religions, so Jewish mayors, Muslim mayors, and Christian mayors of the south of Europe, together with bishops, to inaugurate a new dialogue. It is no longer enough to evoke peace. Peace has to be built. And I believe that the simplicity and the concrete approach of mayors can be well combined with the inspiration of religious people and bishops to inaugurate something new and restart from where Giorgio La Pira had come, in order to avoid the 50 years that we've just experienced get lost. As a matter of fact, Pope Francis sent a message to the bishops in Bari, and he talked about the need to re-establish bonds, to re-erect destroyed cities, and have a garden blossom where you have a wasteland. He talked about giving hope. So, His Eminence, where did you get the idea of the Bari meeting? And what gives you reason for hope when you think of the Florence meeting? The mayor has just talked about this courage that he had. Well, actually, what the Pope said in Bari is beautiful. Actually, re-erect the cities destroyed by violence. If we think about what has happened and what is happening still today, so re-erect destroyed cities, have a garden blossom in the desert. That's the aspiration of prophets in the Old Testament, as well as the aspiration of all the people of goodwill. Their hope is that this desert, that is to say our society, which is thirsty and actually is characterized by lots of negative things, the hope is that this flourishes as a garden, and then give hope to those who have lost it. The biggest negative thing for a person is to lose hope, because the person has no longer an identity. That person, the person who has lost hope, becomes just a machine of him or herself. So I believe that the commenting on this scenario, the Pope said that war is something mad, and we cannot but abandon the idea of abolishing war. We have to build peace. We have to build peace through justice. Well, actually, I don't know how it came to my mind last year to organize this meeting. This is an idea that is certainly far larger than myself and my possibilities. So I can envisage some kind of a recommendation from the Lord that I could not think of by myself. I could have never, by myself, imagined something so great like the Bari conference. Then, unfortunately, we had the pandemic, and we were sort of forced to flee. That was also a very worrying moment. I understood that we had to bring this project further because the project had not been completed 2 years ago in Bari. But how could we do this? And I think that Giorgio Lapira inspired me. So when I saw this young mayor whom I knew just by name, by the way, I'd like to tell you that I met a lot of mayors, and actually most of them are young mayors, and that's a good hope for the world, because you have the task to govern the world, and not only because you are the successor of Giorgio Lapira in Florence, but because your task is to help, to stand by your people, to help them and support them solving their problems. So I think that your mission is not so distant than the mission of bishops. We have a lot of mayors. So I saw this young mayor approaching me, and I wondered what he could want from me. Actually, he was not asking me to restore a church. He actually asked me, do you intend to continue with that initiative of the Mediterranean in Bari? And I replied, well, yeah, I would like to, but there was the pandemic, so I felt really very little when confronted with such a huge initiative. So very candidly, he replied, well, if you recall, what about if you recall the bishops of the Mediterranean countries? If you do that, I will do the same with the mayors of the Mediterranean. And something beautiful was taking place. So the mayor of Marseille, the bishop, sorry, of Marseille, went to the Pope and actually said, actually, this is the synod. What we are doing for the Mediterranean, the meeting that we hope we'll be able to finalize in Florence is the synod. Because the synod simply means actually being together. It means evaluating, assessing proposals, and actually working on common projects. That's the very same meaning of the synod. And that's the work that we have already started. So, listening to the other experiences, proposals, prospects. This is exactly what we need, not only for the Italian church, but for the whole church and for the whole world. What the Pope said in Abu Dhabi on universal brotherhood should continue to be heard. On that occasion, the Imam said that for those who believe we are all brothers because our Father is God, we all believe that God is our Father, so we are all brothers. But it is not important to believe in God if you're all brothers, because actually we all belong to a human race, just one human race. And if it is the case, well, then we are brothers also irrespective from God. So this concept expressed by Pope Francis on universal brotherhood is so strong. And this meeting, this synod, that will actually address the topic of citizenship from the point of view of mayors, from the point of view of mayors. I mean, this is a theological meeting. So the people who are invited will listen to these theological concepts. We are going to talk about peace in the world, which is basically our main objective, and it needs to be built in justice, in truth. Peace has to be built. It doesn't come by itself. It is not something that comes from above, gratuitously. So this will certainly be a wonderful meeting of lots of men and women of goodwill, and I really hope that in Florence we can also rebuild Abraham's family. The Jewish, the Muslim, and the Christian religions actually were all in Abraham, and Abraham is a Mediterranean man, and also Jesus Christ, and also the 12 apostles. I mean, the Mediterranean was the very first basin in the world, the first sea where religion was spread, and also Saint Francis, and also Saint Augustine is a Mediterranean, and there is Saint Dante Alighieri is a Mediterranean. So this means that the sea has a vocation. So these are the reasons that gave me courage. If I were not supported by by Mayor Nardella, by this kind of support by Dario Nardella, I could have not made it, also vis-a-vis the problems. And so basically I told the mayor that there is just one person who can tell us if we are on the right pathway. I told him that I was about to propose this to the person who is entrusted of guiding the boat of Peter. That's yet another concept, important concept, the concept of the boat. And so actually I went and had an exchange with the Pope, and he actually was silent. So at the given stage, I wondered whether I had uttered something too big. So I told him, Your Holiness, what are we going to do? Can I start with this idea? What do you think of this idea? And the Pope said, you know that I like these things very much. Actually, had he told me yes, well, I could have thought that maybe that approval was taken away without conviction. But actually, when he told me, as he told me, well, you know that I've always liked these things, that meant that he was convinced. He was fully convinced. So Peter told me, yes, I'm going to support you. And that was confirmation that we, both of us, needed. Because also La Pira did not do anything without Peter. Actually, he took on the responsibility of his actions, but he would always inform the Pope of all the steps he was carrying out to support peace in the world. And so we came to this stage. So for me, that's a day of grace. I am an old bishop. I'm about to turn 80. I'm going to collaborate with this very young mayor, and I'm going to share with him this initiative. This is a very sad and cold season for the Mediterranean, but I'm really thank God that I can be here this evening to share with you this spring project.
Signor Sindaco, bisogna pregare.
So, well, we have to pray to La Pira at the moment, because this is a very, well, it's a big responsibility. So let me ask a question about mayors. You always said that of the mayor is a very important role. You had many different connections with mayors. So the mayor is the political figure that is the nearest to the citizens, to the people. And we might say that this is true for all the countries of the Mediterranean, according to you. So yes, I think so. Well, I must say that I was really touched by listening to Father Gualtiero because, well, I still call him Father Gualtiero because that's what he told me to call him the first time we met. So this really shows the humanity of the president of the CEI, to whom I'm really grateful, because he could have told me, well, it's a nice idea, my dear mayor. We'll talk about it. Instead, in March, the Bishop of Florence was a friend, came to me and said, Cardinal Bassetti wants to talk to you. So I went back to Rome, and he told me what we told you today. So I was really, really thrilled, and I feel very small in front of such a mission. I think that La Pira will help us, and I think he is already inspiring us. Today's session is inspired by La Pira. So yes, mayors do have a responsibility, and they also have the opportunity to start processes that wouldn't start otherwise. And I'd like to tell you an episode that actually really marked my work as a mayor. And it was at the beginning of my mandate. It was the spring 2014. Pope Francis decided to organize a meeting in Rome with all the mayors of the world to talk about his encyclical Laudato Si. He was helped by His Eminence Sanchez Rondo. So he started inviting the mayors of the most important cities in the world. And I found this invitation by His Eminence Sorondo in my mail on behalf of the Pope. You can imagine it was my first meeting as a mayor. There was the mayor of New York, of Berlin, of Paris, of Bogota, of Buenos Aires, all the mayors of the biggest cities in the world. But the Pope decided to invite a bigger delegation of Italian mayors. So there wasn't only the mayor of Rome, but also the mayor of Milan, Naples, and, as I was saying, the mayor of Florence. And the Pope said, I want to talk, but I'm talking about the year 2014. And let's think now what we're witnessing in terms of climate changes. Well, in 2014, the Pope said, I wanted to talk to you about climate changes, the problem of the ecosystem, of energy consumption. And he said, I could have invited here the heads of state and government to talk about the environment, or I could have invited the ministers of the environment of all the countries of the world. But instead, I wanted to talk to you because you are the first contact with citizens. So the problems I am so worried about, the problems he talked about in that beautiful text, which is more than just a religious text, it is a political text. It talks about environment, it talks about the ecosystem, but it also talks about culture and society. So he said, I want you to tell me how we can change our lifestyle, how can we promote a sustainable model, how can we face the problem of food poverty or the problem of food consumption food waste. So this is something I will never forget. And this is something I think about every single day as a mayor. And now that I've had the opportunity and the privilege to talk to so many other mayors, I do realize how true the words of the Pope were. We might have the most beautiful treaties in the world on how to reduce pollution and on how to limit food waste, but it is only in the cities that we can actually promote working virtuous models, where we can actually create interactions between citizens and enterprises, workers and public institutions, teachers and students. It's only in the city that we can try out new models of social inclusion, of dialogue, even religious dialogue. In Florence, 4 years ago, together with our bishop, with the rabbi and the imam, we decided to do something concrete to promote interreligious dialogue. And thanks to the enthusiasm of all these people, we created an international school for interreligious dialogue. So only in the city we can really work on the dialogue between different religions, ethnic groups. So I do believe that a new project of peace and fraternity can really be started in the cities. And I do hope that the conference in February, with this balance between theological reflections and lay reflections, we can actually have important incentives. And I already have an idea that I have already proposed to His Eminence Bassetti. I would like that the 105 cities that participate in this conference, from Tunis to Palermo, from Athens to Casablanca, it would be great if in all these cities the mayor, together with the bishops of these cities, would build a center for interreligious dialogue. It could be an old building, a school, any building, any place where I becomes we, where religious dialogue creates a new way of being together. And we can do this in the cities. Unfortunately, I'm really worried when I see that immigration is seen by national politics as a way to have controversies. And I really need to find a solution to this, I believe. And this is what mayors can do. This is what they're used to do. They face problems and they don't use them. In many European cities, we have positive experiences of social inclusion, of meeting between different religious communities, cultural communities. So I do believe that all the mayors of Europe have a great responsibility today. That is to say, they have to find the courage to show national leaders the way, because mayors are those who are really in contact with the citizens. They can then show the way to actually achieve something, going beyond principles, going beyond treaties. And this actually holds true for all challenges, climate changes, migration, sustainable lifestyle, cultural and religious dialogue for a new citizenship. Cities have built Europe in the past. Now cities can be that peace frontier about which bishops spoke in Bari. Thank you.
Vorrei solo sottolineare, l'imam di Firenze è venuto.
The imam from Florence was here with us at the Rimini meeting, and we talked about an important aspect. When we talk about migration, and there is someone coming from Northern Africa and arrives in Florence, one thing is if they are welcomed by some institutions, but it is another thing if they are welcomed by people, by communities. So this is extremely important because this integration needs to be carried out because, officials, public figures are not enough. So, Your Eminence, the mayor talked about the community of the city, which is also made of religious communities, Jewish, Muslim. And when the mayors met in Bari, this aspect of local communities as a place of reconciliation, of exchange, of mutual understanding, was it seen as a peace element, a peace factor? Well, the experiences we talked about are completely different. We have all different experiences, different backgrounds. Let's think about Morocco, for instance, or Algeria, where Catholics are just a very small group of families, but they are there. And in Bari, these bishops, who in a way have very small parishes, churches, they were those who needed the most to be supported, to exchange their experiences. For instance, we talked a lot about migration, and a lot of different points of view emerged. So we have to put together the thoughts of the bishops, for instance, of the African coast, and what we think. So this shows us the need to understand what the others think. Sometimes we discuss problems in a very abstract way. Meeting 58 bishops from all over the Mediterranean means to really discuss problems in a concrete way. It means to find a new dimension to our own ideas. I have a stack of letters that I received after the Bari conference, which we will have to look at together before the event in Florence. And here we, in a way, have imitated Giorgio La Pira. There were beautiful episodes, experiences told of monasteries. For instance, what do nuns do? What do they do in their lives? Well, they pray. And from this prayer, we can find some historical steps forward. I have so many letters from monasteries. We wrote to the monasteries before the meeting in Bari, and we'll do it again because we need the support of their prayers, because we need for them to talk to God about these problems. And we also had an initiative, a concrete initiative. I went to London in Arezzo, where there is this school of young people that come from countries that are at war one with the other. So a Palestinian and a Jew that share a room. At the beginning, they might hate each other. If I could hurt you, I would think one about the other. But then, after 2 years, when they leave, they said, how can we make our families, our cities understand that we're friends, that we're brothers, And this is possible. It is possible to be brothers. So, well, we really wanted to give a message. 15 young people were welcomed in Rondin, and I was there. I spent one evening with them, and there was the experience of a relationship between, well, a girl and a boy from Tunis, and one was Muslim and the other one was Christian. And they exchanged ideas and projects, and we really need to move these profound realities. Giorgio Lapira was born in a village on the sea, and he said, used to say, we only see the waves of the movement of history. We see only the waves of a troubled sea. But if we go deep down, we can see that the waters are quite calm. So, well, we see this situation that seems very complex around us, but we need to realize that there is something deeper where God acts and where we can actually act with our faith, with our prayers, and we can go on giving these concrete signs as we did after the meeting in Bari. And I would just like to add one more thing. Giorgio Lapira used to say, and he used to write already in 1958 to Pope Pius XII, the Mediterranean needs to go back being what it was, what it used to be. That sea I was talking about at the beginning. If we want to have a project, well, this should be our project. And Giorgio Lapira, I remember a meeting in Camaldoli. It was extremely interesting. He said, God created man as a farmer from the beginning, because the man was given a beautiful garden. And without wanting to go to complex theological issues, he said, for some reason, the man moved from being a farmer to be the builder of the city, because God made him leave the paradise on earth, and then there was the apocalypse. And this is how we really need to commit ourselves in building our cities. And I saw the holy city coming down from the heavens like a bride towards her husband-to-be. And all the sufferings that are told in the apocalypses are overcome, because God would wipe away all the tears. And he knew the beginning of the story, but he also knew the end. And for him, story was like a bead in the rosary chain. So if we take a rosary in our hands, all the beads are mixed. But if I take them from one single bead, everything is more is simpler, is more clear. We need to reverse the crusades, he said. We went to fight for our faith as soldiers, and now we have to reverse the crusades, said Giorgio Lapira. I wouldn't like to add anything more. I don't need to add anything else. I just say, let's pray for this, because what the mayor said, I'm a bit tired tonight, so I really tried to say just a few words, because As I said, when we take the rosary in our hand, we should take the rosary